What if one of the biggest things keeping you stuck at midlife is not actually your hormones or your history or your schedule or even your current stress load, but your loyalty to the identity of being a woman who is struggling? Now, you don't consciously choose that, of course. No one wakes up and chooses that. But over time, when you've lived through enough hard seasons, your language, your expectations, and certainly your daily decisions can begin to organize around what has been difficult rather than around what is now possible. Welcome to your daily hit of grace and grit, your quick dose of inspiration to kickstart your day. This show is proudly sponsored by Rumble and Rise. To find out more about joining Rumble and Rise, head on over to graceandgrit.com/ready to rumble. I'm Courtney Townley, and here is today's hit. Look, midlife gives you a powerful combination. It gives you heightened awareness, it gives you lower tolerance, and it gives you a very long memory. You can see your patterns more clearly than ever, but you also have decades of evidence reinforcing a story that change is hard for you, that you are the exhausted one. You are the inconsistent one, the one who starts strong, but then always fades. And when that story becomes your identity, your behavior will, very subtly, keep proving that identity true. This isn't about mindset in a fluffy sense, right? There is actually very strong behavioral research showing that we act in alignment with who we believe we are far more consistently than we act in alignment with what we want. I know that seems a little disappointing, but you need to realize the brain is wired for self-consistency or self-fulfilling prophecies. Your brain wants to be right about you. So if your internal narrative is, I'm a woman who struggles with fill in the blank, your daily choices are going to organize around that belief. Not because you lack discipline, but because the identity feels familiar and therefore safe. It feels comfortable, even though it's not really where you want to be. I share countless stories in The Consistency Code, my book, of women I have worked with over the years who were so committed to an identity that wasn't serving them, that they stayed stuck, right? They stayed in this vicious spin cycle of stuckness. And we did a lot of work, where we always do a lot of work, which was around self-narrative. I helped them to adopt language like, I'm becoming a woman who. I am now learning how to. I am committed to now practicing fill in the blank. Because often that's what our identity shift requires, is starting with changing our narrative. And the goal is not to pretend that your past hasn't been hard. Most women I work with have arrived at midlife carrying real physiological and psychological challenge, real caregiving loads, real emotional labor. And honoring that is a part of self-care work. But there is a difference between acknowledging your history and organizing your future around it. Or like I like to say, marinating in it, right? We don't want to marinate in your history. You're allowed to become a woman who is learning instead of a woman who is struggling. That might seem like a subtle difference, but it's a powerful difference. You're allowed to relate to your body as something that is responding and adapting instead of something that's broken, because that's never going to serve you. You are allowed to let your identity be shaped by what you are practicing now, not what you lived through then. So today, I want to invite you to really just start noticing your language. Notice when you hear yourself really committing to your brokenness. It often sounds like, that's just how I am, or I've always struggled with this. But I want you to add one little phrase to that, which is up until now. That one little phrase opens a door. It tells your nervous system that change is not a threat. Change is an evolution. It's a continuation. You're not committed to your brokenness because you're weak. You're committed to it because you know it, because it's familiar. And midlife is the season where you get to decide if that familiarity is more important than freedom. If this stirred something inside of you, imagine what a whole book of clarity and courage could ignite. The Consistency Code, a midlife woman's guide to deep health and happiness, goes even deeper into the mindset and practices that create real, meaningful change at midlife. Grab your copy today over at theconsistencycode.com and keep the momentum alive.